Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kicks and Picks podcast. Coach Steve here with Scotty and Nick. Back from the international break. If you didn't check it out last week, we did do our quarter of the season episode talking about Serie A and the Premier League. So if you want to catch up on that before matches kick off, we discussed the big storylines, we updated the futures and all that jazz. Well, teams were on break and things really got interesting in Italy. I mean, it wouldn't be the Serie A, it wouldn't be the Italian league without controversy, Nick. I mean, Fabrizio Corona apparently is blowing up everybody's spot. I mean, what do you make of this whole controversy? I mean, Fagioli's the one that started it from Juve. He pretty much fessed up to it. The latest thing I saw today, he admitted he had 3 million in gambling debts. This is a
Whoa,
pretty young player. Yeah, I just saw that. 3 million is
respect.
what was reported.
So he has clearly not been listening to Kicks and Picks because that dude is 3 million in the hole. He's making awful fucking bets.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he was losing that money prior to us starting the show, and maybe he started tuning in and cut a little bit off the top. But
Ooh.
yeah, tough spot for him. He's not even a guy who's probably making 3 million a season. So he kind of got the ball rolling on this whole thing by coming out with it, that he had a gambling problem and working with authorities, and then this guy Corona who. From what I've read, I don't know too much about him prior to this. He's kind of like a paparazzi in a sense for football, and he's been name dropping. Now the big names coming out are Sandro Tonali and Nicolo Zaniolo, who both went to the Premier League on big transfers, especially Tonali this offseason. And now names like Stefan El Shaarawy, Federico Gatti, and Nicolo Casali have been dropped, but none of those three are under investigation according to authorities, at least at the moment. So really the big news, obviously Fagioli because he started it, but it's really Tonali and Zaniolo, Scott. I mean, Tonali was a huge purchase for Newcastle. I mean, they,
80
they were
million.
relying on him. And now we're not sure because he even admitted to potentially gambling on his own matches at Milan.
Yeah, would be a real shame if he faced some sort of punishment that prevented him from playing for Newcastle. Would be a real shame. Would hate to see it.
Team
I
of the
mean,
pod. Don't do that.
I think the backbreaker here is if he did bet on his own matches, that's a problem, right? We all talk about gambling here,
Well,
but when it
I
comes
think
to
it's
a
a problem
player,
regardless. You can't be
right?
betting if you're a professional athlete because then it opens you up to like that issue. Or if you have substantial debts, then you start making decisions. And even if you're not the one gambling on your team, you might be
Right.
willing to do things for others that can help
Mm-hmm.
alleviate those debts.
Yes.
So I don't care. It's a full stop for me. You can't if you're a professional
Yeah.
athlete, you're making tons of money. Don't gamble. Wait until you retire.
Yeah.
If Nick can wait 15 years for Florida to legalize state
That's
gambling,
fair.
these professional athletes can wait
That's
8 years for
facts.
their career to be over.
Um, definitely fact. No, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, we see how hard a line they took on Ivan Tony. I feel like it's not going to be good for these guys in the Premier League. News to me about Fagioli. First of all, before I even get into it, open invite for any of these three players or Fabrizio Corona to come on the show. If you guys want to take us through the story, Kicks and Picks exclusive as the number one Serie A betting show, you guys can come on and Premier League betting show. Um, fuck, $3 million. That's unreal.
Yeah.
Did not realize that. So I've been making the joke pretty much all week that you listen to Juve fans. Well, good for him. He came forward. He's cooperating. He should get a lesser sentence. Well, I immediately thought of A-Rod, right? Like, yeah, A-Rod started cooperating once he got caught. Why are we giving him any credit? The fact that this dude was 3 million in the hole, maybe he did actually come forward and confess and say he has a problem. So I may have been wrong on that. I guess we'll wait for the facts to come out. But to Scotty's point, number one, no way should you let yourself get that far in the hole. That's beyond
Yeah.
ridiculous. I know people have problems, and I'm not excusing it, but man, that's brutal. And then he started snitching on all his boys. So like, this dude just looks awful all the way around. I mean, I can't imagine there's one person defending him at this point in time because he's the one who threw Tonali under the bus.
That he introduced him to
He's
the gambling app.
yeah. Oh, he put the app on my
Got that
phone.
referral
Okay,
code.
dude. Yeah. You didn't know how to use the app store. My bad. So he just looks like a piece of shit all the way around. His career, like, I don't know how you come back from this. I don't know how anybody trusts you. It's going to be wild the next couple of days and weeks to see this unfold.
Yeah, and I think you said it perfectly because obviously we're giving out picks here, but any gambling you do with our picks, we want you to do it responsibly. We don't want anybody to go beyond their means. I think that's the important thing is, right? You have to know your limits. And obviously, if certain people have an addiction, as you may call it, then it's hard to stay within those means. But that's certainly not something we condone or endorse here on the pod. I think that has to go. That has to be said. Now, Tonali, if he's found guilty of betting on his own Milan matches, he could face a 3-year ban from what I read. But a plea agreement could possibly bring it down to 12 months is what's being reported. Now, we don't know how factual all of these things are because there's new things coming out every day until we hear it from the horse's mouth, which is the authorities themselves and the decisions they make. We don't know. But, I mean, I'm even thinking from an Italy perspective, Nick, when you think of Tonali, you think of Zaniolo. Now, Zaniolo's star has fallen a bit in recent years, but these were two guys about 3 years ago who were supposed to be the saviors of the Italian national team. And now not only one, but possibly both could be suspended for a lengthy amount of time. Any amount of time right now for Italy is a problem, especially when you look at what Italy did against England yesterday, right? If they qualify for the Euros come November when they play their next two qualifiers, they could be going to Euro 2024 without probably some would say their best midfielder.
Yeah, no, they're in trouble. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we don't have time on this podcast to get into their fucking struggles. We could spend the whole 2 hours on that. But yeah, no, it's bad. And the one question I have, what happened with Paqueta? He's still playing, right? Like was he cleared of his investigation, or is that still ongoing? Because I'm sorry, just his name popped into my head. He was under investigation for like betting on himself and getting cards and shit like that.
It was his like cousin in Brazil was betting on him to get cards. I mean, it's linked to him, but it wasn't necessarily him directly. I don't know what the full investigation is, but if it's anything like the Tony investigation, I mean the Tony investigation took months and months, if not close to a year. So
okay, yeah. I mean, I guess that's the point I was trying to make to back up what Steve was saying. Like, man, this happened quickly, and punishments are like being handed out relatively quickly. So, I mean, I guess the earlier they get punished, the better. But yeah, Steve, I don't expect to see these guys in blue anytime soon.
Do you have like the tinfoil? I'm not saying you specifically, but do you see any validity to like the tinfoil hat conspiracies of like, oh, maybe this has been known about for a while, and that's why you saw some of these players getting sold to England because the clubs were aware of what may have been coming down the pipeline?
Absolutely. So the one thing
Zaniolo, I'd say no so much because he went to Turkey to begin with.
Yeah,
I think that was him just looking for into a Big Five league again. I mean, I don't want to say that Milan knew. I think Milan needed cash, but it is convenient timing.
I was just my general opinion on all of this is, listen, you're going to see a lot of wild, far-fetched stories in the media. We already have, right? It's gone up and down, but like news first broke and everybody's like, no way. I don't believe it. No way. He couldn't have done this. No, he couldn't have bet on his own games. No, he couldn't have told on his team. Like we've seen it with Pete Rose, right? In the US, like we know gamblers, we are gamblers to an extent, right? Like there's always a lot of truth behind what's going on here. Like there's nothing too far fetched that I would be like, oh no, wait, nope, can't be true. Like when you're in the whole $3 million fucking dollars, if that's true, I don't care if it's 300,000 for a dude like, I mean, like nothing's going to surprise me at this point in time. I think there's probably a lot more truth that we don't know about. I think that's really where I'm trying to go with this.
Yeah, and I think the truth will never fully be known unless individuals come out and speak their truth as to what they were doing. I mean, Gatti, Casali, and El Shaarawy all spoke through their lawyers today saying that there is no truth to it. And until they're proven guilty, and they're not even under investigation, I think it's hard to prove they've done anything. So to me, guilty until proven innocent, and I think that's how the leagues are going to handle it. But when something comes out like the Tonali situation and the Fagioli one, they're going to act quickly. Now, I wanted to get your opinion too, because we watch sports here in the U.S., we watch sports in Europe. Who are some of the main sponsors of these leagues these days?
Sure.
I mean,
DraftKings, get the DraftKings commercials all the time.
Every commercial you see, almost every other commercial on NFL games now, MLB, NHL here, whatever you watch, not so much in football here because, there's only one halftime and then you don't get as much coverage there. But all right, so sorry about that. We dropped Nick there for a second. So I'm going to return to my original point just to make sure he caught all of it. So what I was saying was you watch these games here in the U.S. You watch an NFL game on a Sunday or an NHL, MLB game on even on a weeknight. I mean, I was just watching the Islanders last night. Main sponsor in between periods, FanDuels. You see DraftKings commercials pop up. You see Bet365. You see Caesars. You see all these betting apps, right? And if you look in Europe where there's jersey sponsors, you, a lot of
They've
teams
been doing
you
it for
see,
years.
you've
Yep.
way longer than it's been here in the U.S. Right? For a while in the U.S., you pretty much had to be in Vegas to bet on sports legally, right? In Europe, as long as I can remember watching these leagues, I've been watching them for a decade and a half now, probably, and for at least a decade of it, I recall some of the main shirt sponsors as being betting sponsors. I remember Milan had Bwin for how long, right? And some of these other companies. So I'm not saying the players are justified in any way on betting on football because the point you guys made, right? Then it can affect the matches and that just ruins the game for everyone, not even just the bettors, just for the casual viewer. But I think the leagues have to look in the mirror a bit too and say, we're poor. And obviously for a league like Italy and some of these countries that are, rather these teams that are in financial difficulty, you're going to take the sponsorships where you can get them from. But it's kind of like you have to look yourself in the mirror a little bit. Like we're taking all this money from them, but then at the same time, we don't condone gambling to an extent. So it's like,
Yeah. Listen,
where's the line?
the other question is how clear are the rules, right? I don't know. I don't know the players association or whatever they're, put together. I think the rules probably are clear, should be clear. Are they enforced? Like those are the two questions, right? So I think from here going forward, there obviously will be a very hard line drawn, and it's to your point, Steve. It's not gonna go away. The promotion of this is not going to go away. It's only going to get bigger and better. We're going to quadruple our listeners, I hope in the next couple of months. Like that trajectory should go forever and ever because this is new. It's exciting. Leagues are behind it. But it's, I don't know, like you can't tell me this is the first time. These just to me seem like some of the first guys that have been caught now that it's so widespread. I think that's to your point, right?
Coach, my counterpoint to that though is like, even if the league say, all right, we're not going to promote this, I still think it doesn't, change the behavior of how the players that are going to do this are going to do this regardless of, who's on the front of their shirt. And like you said, like at the end of the day, if these gambling companies are funneling money that can help the clubs, improve. I know in Italy it's a little different, but like improve infrastructure, improve, player salaries, improve, recruiting, improve the development of the younger players. Like I think it all is fair. It's hard to put a hard line and say, we don't condone this for our players, so therefore we're not going to take their money for marketing. I think it just has to be, if you're playing for a club, you're collecting money and you're trying to play professionally, like you have to understand there's going to be certain restrictions that you can't do. And you're going to be held to a higher standard too than the rest of the population. And it doesn't just sit at gambling, right? It's going to sit, at pretty much all, illicit activities, right? If someone's out, like, Grealish gets made fun of all the time because he's always out drinking and partying. And it's totally normal behavior for a 22 to 25-year-old to be doing in England. But because he's a professional athlete, there's an extra level of scrutiny. So I think it's all fair. It just needs to, be like Nick said, make more clear to players exactly like what the lines are.
And I'm sorry, Scott, to piggyback off what you're saying, we don't live in 2006 anymore, or 1996, whatever. Like, dude, this is 2023. The internet is a thing. So like people are out there, there's cameras everywhere. Like you're not going to get away with shit. I don't like if you're a famous athlete, I don't know. It's like Tiger Woods, bro. Like you didn't think people were going to recognize you out with these chicks at some point. Like you're not going to get away with it. So be smart.
Yeah, and I think too that the thing is, Dragusin, the Romanian who plays for Genoa now, admitted that he loaned money to Fagioli but didn't know what it was for. Like if you're loaning someone large sums of money, like you don't ask, bro, like is everything all right? Like why do you need probably tens or hundreds of thousands of euros at that point if he's 3 million in the hole, right? And then I think the other concern in a country like Italy has to come down if guys are betting this amount of money, they're probably not all doing it on apps or through legal channels, right? And we know when things are done illegal in Italy, it often involves the mafia to some extent, or Cosa Nostra, or whatever you want to call it, the Gomorrah if you're in Naples. So I think it also leads to like, do they have their tentacles, so to speak, in
Yeah,
professional
this
football,
was with
right?
like illegal Serbians, right, or something
Yeah.
like that. Like it was through like some Serbian syndicate. I could swear I read.
I didn't see, but it makes you think there's
Yeah,
someone behind it, right? Because if you're a professional athlete who's doing this and you know you're not supposed to be and you have a real problem, you're probably doing it in a somewhat shady way, right? So
blame
I think
Vlahovic.
that's the other concern. I think is, are there other factors at work here that could be affecting matches and the way things go? So I mean, I think we could end there unless you guys have anything to add on it, but it's definitely something we're gonna have to keep an eye on over the next couple weeks, and especially from a sporting standpoint, how does it affect Newcastle? How does it affect Aston Villa? How does it affect anyone on the peninsula in terms of suspensions? Because some of these guys are big names. Tonali at the top of the list, so we'll keep an eye on it. But we do have to move into the weekend action. We'll start in the Premier League. There's a couple of big matches around Europe, so we're going to feature one in England, one in Italy, and actually we'll start in Serie A on this one. So it's Juve at Milan, top of the table clash pretty much. Milan enter on 21 points, first in the league. Juve joint third on 17 points. Milan enters unbeaten in their last six in all competitions, four wins, two draws, and both of those draws were scoreless ones in the Champions League. They've been winning straight through in Serie A since their loss after the last international break, which came at the hands of Inter, where they got absolutely hammered, and it looked like Inter might be the clear favorites. And now here we are with Milan at the top. Juve also unbeaten in three straight, two wins and a draw. But head to head, this one surprised me when I was doing my research. Milan's unbeaten in five straight league matches against Juve, three wins and two draws, and they swept last season's series 2-0 win at the San Siro, 1-0 win at the Allianz. So just to set the stage from a betting perspective, Juve plus 220 on the money line. The draw also plus 220. Milan plus 115. And remember, they're at home. This is at the San Siro. Draw no bet. Juve plus 135. Milan minus 175. The over is plus 115 right now, over 2.5, and the under minus 150. So, Nick, I'll start with you. What jumps out at you there? What are you thinking heading into this one in terms of form, in terms of overall squad, whatever is going on? And I guess it's important to mention absences. Mike Magnan and Theo Hernandez suspensions for Milan. They still have a couple issues in the midfield. Loftus-Cheek is still out. Krunic is still out. Benacer's been out for a while. Juve sweating out the health of Vlahovic and Chiesa, just to paint the picture a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's probably why this number is so close. I think Milan are clearly a better team. They've been better recently. I think it's funny. We all went through our picks. We went through the Podlock, the game of the week. Shocked that what we didn't all just come to a consensus and take Milan money line, because I think that plus 115 is a fantastic number to take. It's their game to lose. You know, you mentioned it. Juve, if one or both of Vlahovic and Chiesa are hurt, I just don't see where the goals are going to come from. That's really, I can't see past that. I don't see Juve getting more than one goal in this game. They're going to have to play a perfect game. They're going to have to look really good on defense, because Milan has been, they've been great. They're creating probably the most chances per game in the league. Even those two scoreless draws you mentioned in the Champions League, they had double-digit shots in both of those games. Um, they're looking great. Pulisic, he's coming off of another couple goals off of the international break. He's going to be happy. The thing I did see today, and I cannot substantiate it, but not Okafor, the other dude they brought in. What's his name?
Striker or midfielder?
Yeah, the forward.
I can't pronounce the last name. Chikuzi to I'm
Him.
butchering it,
Thank
but the
you.
guy from Villarreal, yeah.
Yes, from Villarreal. I heard that he may be hurt. He may not feature in this game. So, I mean, that's a little something. You're maybe limiting the options off the bench, but I think Milan probably get off to a fast start in this one. I could see them rolling out to a 1-2 goal victory.
I think the reason why I wouldn't take Milan money line in this one, Nick, is this one feels very much like a draw game to me. I think
Good.
The under, as coach just listed it, under is minus 150, because I think scoring opportunities are going to be few and far between for both sides. We know how wasteful Milan have been in front of goal, and we know how Juve are typically set up. So they're not going to have necessarily the bountiful of chances that they've been getting in the last few matches. So this one, to me, feels very much like you could see a goalless draw. Or, if Milan do get one, do they do the thing that we all hate when we're, betting on a team with a 1-goal lead and sit back for the last 10, 15 minutes, invite the pressure and then give up a shitty deflection or corner kick goal that just ruins your pick. So, I mean, I don't think Milan are winning this by multiple goals. If they do win this one, I think it's a 1-goal win and likely a clean sheet. But I'm also not the Serie A experts that you guys are. So, I mean, I might just be the guy coming in looking at it from what the
I think
matches
that's
that
fair.
I've seen.
And listen, Juve, like for whatever we want to say about them, they've been good. They're only 4 points back, right? They've looked pretty solid against the teams, that they've faced. Their defense has been good. And, Magnan's out. I mean, it could be one good scoring chance that he would typically save. Maybe he doesn't get saved in this game. I mean, is that the difference between a win and the draw? Very well could be.
I think the one thing is they did upgrade though with Sportiello over Tataransu, who's been their
No
backup
doubt.
the last few years. I think he is more of a solid backup. Could probably even start for some of the teams in the kind of relegation fight. Like he's been that kind of keeper his whole career. So I think that helps. I think the under being at -150 says a lot about this match because especially if Chiesa and Vlahovic are out, we're still waiting to get word on if they'll feature. I did see Vlahovic could make it back for this one earlier today. Juve was always probably going to try to play this one tight on the road.
Yeah.
But I think they have to play it even tighter now. It looks like Vlahovic will at least be available on the bench, most likely. But, even then, how much can he give you coming off an injury? He didn't go to Serbia camp. Chiesa got sent back from Italy camp. Now there's the controversy with Fagioli swirling around the squad, even though it doesn't seem to involve too many Juve players. Gotti's name has been brought up. He's a projected starter on defense. Is there any distraction for him? No. I do like Milan in this one. I think the money line is the way to go. The draw no bet's unplayable pretty much at the number it's at. But I do expect it to be a tight match. I think the biggest issue Milan's had, you mentioned it, they don't finish their chances. They're going to have to be a little more clinical against a team like Juve because Juve can defend pretty well. We've seen that plenty from them, especially in the Allegri years. I mean, this has 1-0, maybe a 1-1, 2-0. I don't see it going over unless Juve scores first and Milan can find a way. I mean, I think if someone scores early, it could happen. You're not going to bet the under at -150 anyway. Right. I think if you're going to bet something like that, maybe you go. I mean, you can't even touch it because you're not going to go under 2, so it's untouchable. So it's definitely tough. But I think the form of players like Pulisic, of Leao, I think could be the difference here. I'm curious to see how the midfield does, because you do have Loftus-Cheek out, who got off to a good start for them. Benacerra's been out since the beginning of the season. He's been an important piece for them in the past couple seasons. And then even Krunic got hurt, who filled in for Loftus-Cheek. So Adley comes in again. He played last match, but he's not an experienced player.
He was pretty solid,
he was
though.
Pretty good, right?
He looked good. I know our friend Martino's very high on him. Reinders has been awesome.
From everything I read and see, he's been highly rated by Milan fans. I mean, the two Americans in midfield could be important in this one, right? You have Musa for Milan and you have McKennie for Juve. Can one of them make a difference? Yeah. Because we know what we're getting from Locatelli and Rabiot in the Juve midfield, right?
I think if Milan gets the first goal in this game, they're not losing the game. I think that's just kind of my prevailing thought. I mean, I do like them on the money line. I probably will be placing that bet. Actually, definitely will be placing it. But I think if they score first, the draw is like the worst possible result they get.
I think so. It's hard, especially without Chiesa or Vlahovic starting. I think that puts a lot of pressure on Juve to defend even more than they normally would have to. I think the one place that maybe they can attack Milan is down that Milan's left flank, where Florenzi's probably playing left back. He's not a traditional fullback. He's been played there for quite some years now. But normally when he played at Roma and even at Milan early on, it was on the right side. Him having to play the left side is a little bit awkward for me. Doesn't defend great to begin with, and I Kostic maybe can push that wing a bit. Maybe they can push it with Weah and Kostic, and maybe they can make something happen there. But it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult for Juve, and I think they'd be happy to come out of this with a draw if they can get it.
I'm guessing this is going to be a much more boring game than people will hope for, right? I feel like you're going to
Yeah.
walk away from watching this and be like, man, that sucked.
I think if Allegri has his way, that's what we will get.
Yeah. Just thoughts.
All right, so let's move to the big one in the Premier League this week. That one is the London Derby, one of many London derbies, of course, but this one features Arsenal at Chelsea. Arsenal joint top of the table without a loss so far this season, coming off that massive win against City at the Emirates, where they got that late goal from Martinelli. Chelsea is sitting at 11th, but with back-to-back wins heading into the break. Their scoring troubles may have turned the corner with 6 goals combined in those wins after 3-match goalless streak. Arsenal have won 4 consecutive derbies in a row, and Chelsea's last win was in August of 2021 in this head-to-head. Some game-time injury decisions, big ones in this one. For Arsenal, it's Saka, Trossard, and Saliba. Chelsea has Palmer, Disasi, Badashili, Jackson, and Broha out. So the bigger injuries, of course, are on the Arsenal side, especially the Saka one and the Trossard. It limits the attack a little bit, but I'll let Scotty get into that in a second. Just to give you the lines, we have Arsenal plus 135 on the money line. Remember, they're on the road, plus 135. Draw plus 225, and Chelsea plus 195 money line at home. Draw no bet, Arsenal minus 145 and Chelsea plus 110. The over 2.5 minus 110, under minus 115. I think a lot of that total has to do with Chelsea style of play more than Arsenal's probably, Scott.
Yeah, and I think now is a good time to hit a plug. You know, we kind of covered this match and the Juve match over on happyhoursports.net, and I'll kind of spoil the bottom line here. I think this game to try to cap now midweek is near impossible because the international break isn't over yet. There's going to be updates coming on these game time injuries for both clubs, and I think if 2 or 3 of these players are actually available to go, when the expectation right now is the vast majority of them aren't. I think that'll change the outlook of this game significantly, right? Like if it comes out that Saka and Saliba are both ready to go and they're going to play through whatever they're dealing with, then yeah, I think Arsenal's line at plus 135 drops down to much closer to even money. Whereas if it's confirmed that they're out, and then you hear Cole Palmer and Broha and maybe even Disasi, who's been playing a little bit better, are available, then I think you might see Chelsea kind of pull it in a little bit closer to a 50-50. But with that said, I mean, we can talk about the form. Arsenal undefeated. They're the clear favorites in this matchup. I think the lines are just kind of indicative of like the book's uncertainty right now over exactly who's going to be available. The one thing that we've kind of mentioned about Arsenal though is like, yeah, they're undefeated right now. They're top of the table, but a lot of their wins haven't exactly been like the prettiest of wins. And the old saying is like a dirty win is still 3 points, and those are the kind of the games that maybe make the difference between a title winning side and a side that finishes just outside of the Champions League spots. So they're doing what they need to be do. It just kind of has this sense of like all it takes is 1 or 2 things to kind of go wrong and maybe the wheels fall off, which could be their current mini injury crisis. So with that said, I mean, I don't hate Chelsea here. I think they've kind of figured some things out. If Cole Palmer is available, he kind of seems to be a bit of a solution for them right now in terms of like actually generating goals. Jackson looked like he's maybe turning a quarter a little bit. He got a goal in his the last match against Burnley right before break. If he can get going, then I think their outlook looks a lot different because Raheem Sterling has been carrying this scoring load for Chelsea all season long, and he's having a great season, but he's needed somebody to kind of step up. And, if 1 or 2 of those guys are actually become viable, consistent players that can build some sort of, rapport with Sterling, then all of a sudden this attack that's generated, very, very few goals. I think they have 11 goals on the season, but 6 have come in those 2 matches. If that all of a sudden becomes an output of maybe 2 goals a game, then yeah, Chelsea become a very different side than we've seen for the last year.
Yeah, I'll kind of agree with Scott here. I think, listen, a lot of the injuries unknown coming out of a very lengthy layoff and international break is another unknown. It kind of, I tend to side with the home team with better odds, right? Or more favorable odds. So a Chelsea draw no bet at plus 110 to me is pretty solid. I think this is, listen, Arsenal is the better side. They should win, but like in this instance, I give Chelsea a better chance to win this game than I give Juve to win at Milan. And these, it's like kind of a similar setup. So yeah, I think the home field advantage is big in this one. I'm torn on the over. I don't know which way to go. I mean, because we haven't seen either team really light the lamp, so to speak. But I could also see this being like a 3-2 game, because why wouldn't it be, right? So
Yeah.
it's really, like you said, it's the marquee game, probably the hardest game to handicap in the whole slate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think you have to wait probably a little longer to make wagers on this one. We're recording on Wednesday. The match is on Saturday afternoon. Eastern time, U.S. So I think you do have to wait. You have to kind of see what Saka's status is like. What's Troussard looking like? Who's starting an attack for Arsenal along with Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus. And I think Chelsea too. Like their injury list is a mile long, right? It's like if you took the roll of toilet paper and just kept on rolling it and rolling it. Like you look at their injury list on LiveScore, potential injuries, and it's like 15 deep. Obviously, they have a very deep side and they've spent a lot of money and brought a lot of players, but eventually those catch up with you. But I agree with Nick to the point that I think they have the better chance of pulling an upset or at least getting a result than Juve does because they are at home. They have a little momentum heading into this one. Arsenal, I think, has a little more momentum because they kind of defeated the team that was their biggest stumbling block last year in City, and I think that'll carry some momentum. I think I would have felt a little bit better about Arsenal if it wasn't the international break in between that City win. I think they kind of, I don't want to say it derails the momentum, but it kind of sidetracks it a little bit. And this one is tough to handicap, but I do like Arsenal to win, but it's not going to be so clear cut, I think, as the odds suggest.
It's like a classic letdown game, right? I mean, granted, it's 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago at this point. You gave everything you had, you beat City, and now here comes Chelsea, 11th place Chelsea, who can't get out of their own way, right? I don't know. I'd just be scared.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think the one thing Arsenal have going for them, it sounds like of the players listed, Saliba is probably the most likely to play. And with him and Gabriel and at back, they've been playing really well defensively. I think their defense has created or allowed the fewest clear-cut chances in the Premier League so far this season. We know Chelsea have been wasteful leading up until those 2 wins they had in terms of goals scored and opportunities similar to Milan. So in that regard, like the under 2.5 at -115 might be the play, especially if it's, 2 teams kind of limping into the, match and, obviously haven't had a whole lot of practice time with the international break leading up to it. So that might be the play. But, I don't want to spoil my pick, but I there is one pick that I think I have to make. And so I'm making it as a lock, which we can get to in a little bit, but it's just really tough because, everything about this feels weird. It just feels like the books know something again, and I usually try to avoid those matches.
Yeah, sometimes they do feel like they know more than us, right? We're going to get into the picks in just a second. Just a couple other Premier League matches that are kind of on the radar this weekend. I think Brighton City's a big one. See how legit Brighton is, and has City gotten over their back-to-back losses. Merseyside is this weekend, of course. That's always big for Scotty. Liverpool's been way better than Everton of late, but it's still always a fun one. It's a derby match. Those two jump out at me, and we'll get into some more in our locks. Anything else you guys are looking at this weekend to maybe keep an eye on in any of the leags?
No, it's a good slate of games, man. On the Premier League, you got Villa, West Ham.
That's another one. I missed that one. Yeah,
Tottenham's looked good. We're gonna have some relegation specials, it looks like. So definitely a good slate. Better slate in England than there is in Italy.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, outside of the big head-to-head in Italy, there's not much to look forward to except maybe some goals, hopefully, in some of those matches. So let's get into our hat trick of picks. Just to recap, last week before the international break, we were 7-2-1, up 5.65 units. That was much needed after 2 rough weeks on the season. Now we're 41-37-2, up 6.3 units. So not where we want to be, but definitely trending in the right direction after the last one.
Back-to-back 7-win weeks, sir.
So, Scotty, start us off with our first winner of the weekend.
Yeah, so it's the pick that I was alluding to. I'm taking Arsenal money line plus 135 at Chelsea. I'm acknowledging it's probably a trap bet. I wrote it in the write-up for happyhoursports.net that I think the square pick is Arsenal, and the sharp pick is what Nick said, Chelsea draw no bet. But at the end of the day, like it's the league leaders who are undefeated playing against Chelsea, who have largely been, one of the, I don't want to call them a joke, but like they've been at the butt end of the jokes for the last year and a half in terms of their performances and what they've been, putting out on the field. And so to get Arsenal at plus 135 is just a ridiculous number. And so, yeah, it certainly feels too good to be true. Probably is too good to be true, but I can't pass that up because I think those are the times where as a square, like you try to like be self-aware and you steer away from it, and then those hit and you kick yourself. So I got to take it, maybe my guy, Gabriel Jesus gets going here. I took him as my long shot for the golden boot. Maybe a little hat trick action here gets him right back into the fray after missing the first couple of weeks due to injury. So I'm going to, continue to ride what I expect from, the preseason and hope that, recency bias is what's kind of controlling these lines. And maybe I'm just avoiding that altogether.
And what I'll say, I think what we always try to say, you're getting the league leaders at plus money. Like you take that, you take it and you don't think twice, right? Like that to me is the advice for this game. Yeah. If they don't win, they don't win, but you put your chips in the best possible spot, and it's the first place team at plus 135.
I think that's what it comes down to, right? There's certain teams you don't pass up good numbers on, especially plus money numbers, and in this situation, Arsenal is one of them. All right, going from
and again, it's not like Arsenal's playing, a top 4 team right now. It's they're playing the 11th place team, so it just doesn't make sense.
All right, so going from the first place team in the Premier League to the top of the table team in the Bundesliga, I'm going Bayer Leverkusen money line with my first pick. They're minus 140 at Wolfsburg. They're on fire to start the Bundesliga, having dropped just 2 points. Xabi Alonso's side leads the league on those 19 points and are joint top goals scored with 23 in 7 matches. So they're scoring more than 3 per match on average. Wolfsburg hasn't been terrible. I think they're 7th in the table, but have alternated wins and losses over their last 5. And they don't score much with just 10 and 7. I think Leverkusen's superior attack is enough to get the win on the road.
Coach Worldwide is 6-0 in his last 6 picks, so he was too modest to say that out loud. I'll say it for him. And yeah, dude, Wolfsburg is one of those teams though. Like if I need them to do something, they screw me all the time. But I'm hoping that Leverkusen takes it to him in this one. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I don't usually go to minus 140 too often, but I just think that Leverkusen's been too good.
Yeah, well, I'll make you feel better because I also took a minus 140 pick when I was first looking at it. The odds have since shifted in our favor. So that is Inter Milan money line minus 135. They are at Torino, just on the edge of playable, as you were saying, Coach, but we have to take the in-form Inter side. Only one blemish on their record so far this year. Torino stink. They're winless in their last 4. They have yet to score more than 1 goal in any of their matches. When I looked at this, I had Inter as like a minus 200 favorite or better. So just on basic principles, on value alone, we have to ride with Inter. I can't imagine they don't put 2 or 3 past this Torino side.
This would have been an easy under game for me in years gone by, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Torino defensive hold
he has been hot, dude.
Yeah,
that's the other thing.
All right. Second lock of the week for me. Nick is going to hate this pick, but I come with lots of reasons why, and hopefully I can convince him. But I'm taking Everton, double chance. It's plus 225 at Liverpool. Look, this is Everton's Super Bowl. Whenever we talk about Everton going on,
I gotta pause you a second here. So you're basically betting that you're actively rooting against your side to get 3 points here with this pick.
Oh no, I just know that's going to happen because nobody knows Liverpool better than me. So when I can take advantage of it, I do. But yeah, Everton Super Bowl is every season is playing Liverpool. We talk about it like when Everton are in threat of being relegated, how, it'd be sad that this club would go down. They have so much history, blah, 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 blah. But I've always said that they roll over for every other top 4, top 5 club except for Liverpool, and they always show out. So that's the reason why I wouldn't mind seeing them go down. But the other reason for this is Liverpool are playing in, once again, the early time slot that Klopp hates so much on Saturday morning. They will not play probably most of their South American players. So that will be Darwin Nunez, there'll be Luis Diaz, there'll be Alexis McAllister. I imagine Allison will play because he's a goalie, but just a reminder that those guys won't actually be making it to Liverpool until Thursday afternoon England time at the earliest. So they'll have basically 36 hours to kind of turn it around before the match. And Everton are winners of 3 of their last 4 games. They're actually playing pretty well. So I like the way that they're trending. Unfortunately, I think this is a classic game where like they come out, Sean Dyche is known for stacking the box, and I think they're going to do that again, just frustrate Liverpool. And we also know that Liverpool love conceding first, especially in the first half. So this really feels like a game where Liverpool come out, they don't play their, best starting 11 because they're coming off of international duty. Everton get a sneaky first half goal, and then Liverpool spend the entire second half trying to break them down. And maybe Liverpool get a draw out of it, right? Maybe they do get that late, equalizer because Nunez comes on in the 80th minute, but it just feels like a game that Liverpool are going to drop points, and Everton getting plus 225 odds for that is really, really good.
One thing I'll just say, you are correct. I do hate this bet. I hate it for a lot of reasons. Number one, don't want you to be upset. Number two, it's more fun when Everton stink. Then I know we can get our boy Steve Cerruti back on the pod. But just throwing this out there to the betting world. Listen, he's hit quite a few plus 200 bets this year. So as coach, I'm not knocking the logic. I'm not knocking the value that he's trying to get for you all. You can take Everton on the spread. Plus 1.5 goals is minus 115. I mean, that's a pretty fucking good bet. Even if Liverpool pull out the 1-goal victory, you walk away with a winner. Just throwing it out there. I'm not saying change your lock. I'm just, for the listeners, not a bad option.
For his own mental health, right? Because then if his side wins, he doesn't lose money, and if his side doesn't win, he still wins money. So,
and if his side wins by 2, he could say, "Shit, man, I handicapped it correctly," and Pool they got that half a goal hook.
Nah.
All right, I'm sticking in the Bundesliga with my second one. I'm going with the club that I've ridden to victories 2 weeks in a row. Stuttgart draw no bet, even money at Union Berlin. So last year's feel-good story, Union, hosts this year's feel-good story, Stuttgart. However, at the moment, the two are trending in complete opposite directions. Stuttgart has won 6 of 7 and sits second in the table. Union has lost 5 straight in the league after back wins to open the season, making it 7 straight L's in all competitions. I've cashed on Stuttgart, like I said, in back-to-back weeks. I love their value here at even money on the draw no bet. Don't get the protection against a draw on the road. Union's defense, which was stout last season, has conceded an average of 2 goals per match so far. For that reason, I think Stuttgart, led by Serhu Girassi, who has 13 tallies, will be too much in Berlin. The guy has scored 13 times already in 7 matches. It's insane.
Crushing. All right. R.I.P. Union, no longer the team of Coach Steve. But I am going to go to the actual team of Coach Steve, and that is Roma. They're taking on Monza. I like both teams to score in this one. Minus 115. First and foremost, Roma have found the form. Let's give credit where it's due. Lukaku has been a fucking menace over the last couple of weeks. I don't think anybody's surprised. Serie A obviously suits him, his age, and his skill set a lot better than England. So they're crushing. But fortunately for all of us, they still do have Rui Patricio, who fucking stinks. Monza have scored in 4 of their last 5 games. I think that they snag one here. The over was not a good value in this one, and to rely on either of these teams, even in the form Roma's in, to get 2 or 3 goals is a lot to ask. I think they get a goal each, minus 115.
All right. I will close us out with the hottest pick that has been going on in this podcast for the last month, and that is going to be my money line parlay. This week I'm going with Tottenham money line against Fulham and Manchester City money line against Brighton. It pays out at plus 113. Nice. Look, Fulham have struggled in the month of September. We talked about them dealing with the loss of Mitrovic. They haven't quite really replaced him. In September, they've lost to City 5-1. They drew with Crystal Palace 0-0. They lost to Chelsea 2-0. So not really a whole lot going on aside from some wins over Luton Town and Sheffield United, who are the newly promoted clubs. So they're doing enough to stay out of the relegation battle, but they really don't pose much of a threat to any of these top teams. So I think Tottenham will roll here. They play them on Monday, so we'll have to wait until Monday night to know for sure. Manchester City on the other side, coming off of back-to-back losses for the first time, I imagine, in 5 years. I don't think they've ever lost 3 games in a row under Pep, so I don't see that happening here. Brighton have looked okay, but I don't know that they're going to pose much of a threat on the road to Manchester City. The one caveat is this is, I think, the final game of Rodri's suspension, and we've kind of seen just how vulnerable City are without, De Bruyne and Rodri and Gundogan in that midfield. Obviously, Gundogan's not coming back anytime soon. He's enjoying his time over in Barca, but eventually Rodri will be back, from his suspension, and De Bruyne will be back and healthy. So I think taking advantage of maybe a little extra juice on the Man City side right now, just because of those injuries, will certainly pay dividends this week.
All right, I'm going with Real Madrid with my next one. They're minus 120 at Sevilla right now. They top the La Liga table with 24 points through 9 league matches. The Merengues also boast the league's best defense and have conceded just 6 times. Meanwhile, Europa League specialist Sevilla are again off to a slow start domestically, only 8 points, down at 14th in the La Liga table. Anytime you can get Real Madrid at this number, you have to take it. Minus 120 is too good to pass up on them, especially against an underperforming Sevilla side.
Yeah. I mean, I think let's all be in agreement too. If Coach didn't steal this is probably the podlock. So well done. I like it, Coach. I'm going to have to go, unfortunately, to my team for the third one. Been crushing in Serie A, so I wanted to stick in that league. We mentioned England, a lot of good games. Scotty probably made the best picks available. There wasn't much else. Going to go with Lazio. Lazio to score in the first half, minus 115 at Sassuolo. I know what you guys are thinking. Lazio is off to kind of a slow start, but Sassuolo still exists. Their defense is still terrible. Lazio have scored in their last 5 first halves against Sassuolo. They've won the first half money line in 4 out of their last 5 against Sassuolo. And quite honestly, they were the best, if not the best, one of the top 2 or 3 first half teams in Serie A last year. I think, even especially through the first half of the season, they had won it was something like 12 out of 15 first halves or something crazy like that. So they need to get off to a strong start. They're going to want to grab points in this game. I think this is a good opportunity, and that's just a really good number for them to get a goal in the first 45.
Yeah, I expect goals in this one. I think the over is in play. You probably got to go 3.5, but I think there should be goals in this one based on these were 2 of our original over easy sides. So goals should be coming. Podlock, we are going to the Premier League for it this week, and it is Wolves draw no bet. They're plus 105 right now at Bournemouth. Wolves feel like they're better than their record indicates, especially after beating City 2 weeks ago. They're on 8 points, I believe, 14th in the table. Bournemouth has yet to win a match this season, has the lowest scoring attack in the league, just 5 goals scored so far. We don't see it happening here. We don't think they get their first win. We like Wolves to get the result on the road. And with the protection of the draw no bet, plus 105 is a solid number there, and that's what we're riding as our podlock this week.
Yeah, 6-2 on the year. 2-game winning streak after a little stumble there. So game of the week is hot, people.
Yeah, game of the week is hot. We're looking to keep it hot here with Wolves. Aside from that, look at happyhoursports.net. We're posting things on there weekly now. As Scotty mentioned, we have the betting previews for both the Milan and Arsenal matches. Our pod lock is here. And also on our Patreon page, we've been posting our Premier League and Serie A patron-only picks. And Serie A, where Nick and I are on fire. Scotty holding his own in the Premier League. So plenty of great content there for just a couple dollars a month. So check it out. The link's in our Twitter page, and it's just same name, Kicks Picks Podcast. So we thank you all for listening. We'll catch you again next week.